All right, today I'm going to be going over the dumbbell chest press, and we're just going to explain some of the benefits and why it's a great movement to develop the chest. First, we're going to look at the muscle fibers. So the muscle fibers of the pec kind of run in a fanning motion like that, and the reason that's important is because they attach at 3 different places and have 3 different directions. So you have your clavicular fibers, you have your sternal fibers, and you have your costal fibers. So because of that, each one can pull in a different direction, but in general, the whole chest will pull on your shoulder at the same time. So we can effectively target the chest by either doing a decline or a flat bench press. And I'll go into why the incline is not the best for the chest and developing it in another video. But today we'll just go over the flat dumbbell chest press. So let's take a look at the primary and secondary levers. So the primary lever of the pec is the humerus, which is this portion of the upper arm. It's also the bone in the upper arm. And the secondary lever is the forearm, or the radius and ulna. And the reason that those are important is because that's what we need to get perpendicular to gravity. So our line of resistance in this exercise is gravity. So gravity obviously always is a force that pushes down, and we are fighting gravity when we push up, which is why we are able to load the pec. And you always want to have opposite position loading, meaning that you want your muscle to be opposite of the line of resistance. So in this case, we check those boxes, which is important. But in order for any muscle to become optimally loaded or maximally loaded, you need to get your primary lever, so in this case the humerus, you need to get the humerus, which is this muscle, you need that to be perpendicular to your line of resistance. So let's look at the next portion of the press. So as you can see right here, we have our primary lever, which is this muscle right here. We have that perpendicular to gravity. That means at this portion of the movement, the pec is fully loaded and 100% of the load is being applied to the pectoral muscles. Now, this is important because that is any goal in loading a muscle, is to get that pectoral muscle moving. Okay. So let's also take a look at this secondary lever, right? So the secondary lever, as we can see, is still parallel with our line of resistance, right? So we have gravity and we have our line of resistance. They're still parallel to each other. This is important because if your secondary lever, in this case, were to tilt this way or to tilt this way, it would either load the tricep more if it's on the inside. So the tricep would be loaded more in this case, and the chest would be loaded more in this case, in that angle. So we don't want to have any tilt either direction, because that's just going to make it so that we have insufficiencies. For example, if you are tilting your arm inward, you're putting more load on the tricep, and load is being taken off your pectoral muscle, right? And if you tilt outwards, yes, you're putting more load onto your chest, but that also means you're not going to be able to do the same amount of weight. You're putting your shoulder at risk, and it also means that you're putting your elbow at risk. So in general, for this press, we want to keep our secondary lever straight up and down. That's going to make it so that we don't have any other limiting factors from the secondary lever, and our humerus can be the only thing that's moving, and that is connecting at the elbow joint. Now, technically, I could stop this movement right here and continue back upward toward my concentric, and that is perfectly fine. But I prefer to get slightly larger range of motion without feeling any shoulder discomfort. So personally, I go just a little bit past a little stretch on the muscle, which does take a little bit of the load off my chest, but it just feels more comfortable for me, and it ensures that I am using a full range of motion. Alrighty. So, as you can notice, the secondary lever still straight up and down. So the humerus is the only thing being loaded right now. Or the pec is the only thing being loaded right now with the humerus. And let's go back upwards, and we'll talk about why dumbbells are superior to having a barbell, for instance. And this is the reason why. So as you can see, the humerus starts here, and you want the humerus to be able to move freely. So as we progress, we can see that the humerus is coming closer to the pectoral fibers, or closer to the midline of the body. And that's the goal of the pec. That's what the pec does. It brings this humerus inward. So if we were to go look at this whole movement, we start at the very bottom, and the humerus is being pulled inward as far as possible. And that is why the dumbbells are so important, because it's a unilateral exercise, meaning you are moving one thing per hand. And that is important because in a barbell bench press, we have to push straight up. So the bar would be here, and you have to push straight up. So your humerus can only move to about there, rather than moving all the way into here, because that bar cannot split in half, it cannot bend, so it has to stay in that fixed position, right? So this is a case where weight is not always the predictor of whether a muscle is being loaded. In this, even though I'm only using 60-pound dumbbells, I would be loading my chest a lot more than if I were to use a barbell. And that's super important, because not only is it safer, but it is better for muscle growth. But yeah, that's pretty much the main points of why you want to do a dumbbell chest press. The humerus can move freely. Your primary lever is becoming perpendicular with gravity. Your secondary lever stays neutral the whole time. So you're not having any shoulder impingement. And you're pushing to the middle of your chest, which is the job of the pectoral, and it's also safer in terms of failure. You can go to failure and bail out easier, and you don't have things like friction force, which I'll go over in the barbell bench press video. But yeah, that's going to conclude why the dumbbell chest press is so good for your chest and why it's the only movement I do. See you guys in the next one.